there. Greetings to all of my cognitive psychology students. I hope you guys are having a terrific Wednesday. Um, and as you're working through Module 1, I wanted to make you aware of an error in one of the videos. So fortunately, some of you were kind enough to let me know that this was happening. But in the language acquisition video, apparently the video cuts out for about 2 minutes. And because of that, I skipped over 2 different bullet points in my discussion of criticisms of Skinner's theory of verbal behavior. So I talked about, for example, universal stages of language acquisition. I talked about infant-directed speech. And later I talked about the vocabulary explosion and some other things. But in the context of that lecture, I skipped over novel utterances and errors. So I just wanted to make a quick video so that I could cover that information for all of you. It should also be in the textbook, but I wanted to make a video and sort of explain it myself. So again, Chomsky's theory of language acquisition is that we have what he called an innate language acquisition device. And this is essentially some kind of component or architecture within the mind that predisposes us to learn language, right? So if you can picture the mind as a computer, right? Chomsky essentially argued that we already come with, when we enter the world, we have, I guess our hard drive is already loaded with an inborn program that predisposes us to be able to pick up language. And a related idea to the innate language acquisition device was Chomsky's theory of universal grammar. And so essentially with universal grammar, Chomsky argued that all languages, regardless of culture, regardless of geographic location, regardless of creed, can be distilled down to the same general components. So all languages have some way of objecting or of saying no, stating the negative. All languages have the capacity to say yes or state the affirmative. All languages have the capacity to, for example, talk about time. So to reference things in the past and present and future. So because of that, Chomsky argued that we are innately endowed with a capacity to understand languages because all of those languages, at the essence of those languages, are all the same, even though there's a wide variety of spoken languages, all of the core elements are the same. So that's Chomsky's theory of the innate language acquisition device and universal grammar. And we contrast that with Skinner's theory of verbal behavior. So Skinner's theory of verbal behavior states that we acquire language through the mechanism of operant conditioning, right? So kids just kind of randomly mimic the noises that they hear, and then eventually one day they mimic them correctly. So they say, for example, a random collection of syllables. So they might say mama or dada, right? And inevitably what happens when they do that is their parents get really excited, right? They clap and they're so happy. They might whip out their phone and make a video for their Instagram of their child saying their name. So essentially, they just randomly come to create or to make the right sounds. And when they make the right sounds, those sounds are followed by an immediate reward of parental praise in this case. And in the same way, if they say something bad, I can't imagine a baby saying a swear word or something, but if they say something bad, presumably it's going to be followed by punishment. Or if they simply say something that's not correct, they're not going to receive a reward. So essentially, all of the examples that I gave on this slide were examples of things that seem to support Chomsky's theory and to discredit or challenge Skinner's theory. Okay, so two of those things that I skipped over in my last video were novel utterances and errors. So I'll start with novel utterances. And so novel utterances is just Chomsky's correct assertion that children often say things that would never be reinforced, right? So children, for example, might say, I hate mommy, right? Or brother is bad or something, something that would not be appropriate, and that hopefully their parents would not reward them for. Kids also just have weird names for things. When I was a kid, I had a toy that I called a Twidgy. Still don't really know where I got that from. So when you make up your own words, those are called neologisms, which kids use a lot. They just kind of come up with random names for stuff. And given the disparity of randomness when kids come up with these things, again, there's quite a bit of evidence that it would never be reinforced, or that they would never have gotten that from a parent. Okay, so that is novel utterances. Kids just saying things that are either completely made up or that would never be rewarded by a parent or a guardian. Right? The other piece of evidence that seems to support Chomsky's theory is something called overcorrection errors. And those errors are essentially when children use grammatical rules, but they use them incorrectly. So we definitely see this in the English language, right? Because we have all of these exceptions to our grammatical rules, right? So sometimes when you denote that something occurs in the past, for example, you can just tack on an ed to it, right? So for example, I studied for 5 hours yesterday, right? But other times we have our own unique words for things denoted in the past. So for example, if you were to say, I goed to the store, G-O-E-D, that would be incorrect, because in that instance, we would say something like, I went to the store. But if you've ever had a conversation with a 2-year-old, right, then they frequently say things like that. I goed to the park, or I eated my cookie, things like that. So things that an adult, and really anybody with fluency in English, would never say. So if they would never say it, or it's incorrect, it's very unlikely that it'll be reinforced. Okay, so those are the two things that were missing from my video. And again, I apologize. Certainly, if you have any questions about language acquisition or any other topics before you turn in your critical thinking questions, please let me know. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.